If you live in the Pacific Northwest and you drive up 405, Interstate 405 on the east side of Lake Washington, this is what you'll see. Well, first you'll see traffic like this, which actually is not horrible. But more importantly, you'll see this building to the left right here. There you go. That is the VMAC, the headquarters of your Seattle Seahawks, baby. And that is who I believe will be back at the top of the NFC West next year. Yes, it's a bold statement to say. And yes, I am 999. Congrats to Patrick Mahomes. Congratulations. Assuming in a very cold Kansas City. And NFC West, though, jumping ahead. Now that this season is officially in the books, 2000. A few thoughts as I'm on my way, about next 20 minutes or so, on my way to a job. Seahawks to get back. Stream is lovely. It's enough that you can. Seattle was close. We talked about those few inches, how close we were to changing that whole playoff picture. In some ways, we were really close, and in some ways, we had a long way to go. But this is the key, I think, to Seattle getting back atop the NFC West. The main thing you got to look at every year, and Kansas City proved that, is that you go as far as your quarterback. Because the 49ers had, on paper, they had everything you would need to win the Super Bowl. You had an outstanding running game, good offensive line, speedy, solid receivers, and a great defense. It wasn't a perfect team, but you had one of the best front fours on defense you could ask for. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Good linebackers. Pretty good secondary, although that can be, there might be some question marks after the way the season ended in the Super Bowl. But the one thing that everybody was wondering about was, did they have their franchise quarterback? And I'm sure there are some people who are the Jimmy Garoppolo lovers who still believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is the man. But he had the chance to be the man. I talked about this the night of the Super Bowl. And he was playing very well up until about midway through the fourth quarter. But he had the chance to stake his claim at the top of the mountain and prove to the world and to everybody that he belonged, and he was a clutch quarterback who could win it, who could take your team when everything else is falling apart around you, when your defense isn't getting stops, when the running game's not happening, and the game is on your shoulders. You can make the throws and make the plays when it counts and take your team to win. And it didn't happen. The nice thing, looking at the NFC West, who do we got there? We've got the aforementioned 49ers. We've got the Los Angeles Rams. And what do they have there? They got Jared Goff at quarterback. Now, I've been saying this for a while now. They were also at the top of the mountain when it came to offenses for a while. But Todd Gurley, as soon as Todd Gurley started to fall apart, break down, so did everything else on that offense. And I think Todd Gurley covered up the shortcomings of Jared Goff. Now, last time we saw him, he slayed us pretty good. So I can't exactly say that he's just a terrible quarterback, but we've had issues with quarterbacks in that type of system. Bottom line is, though, he also had a chance to prove himself at the Super Bowl last year. Couldn't get it done. So I don't believe he's, franchise top 10, top tier quarterback material. Not a good defense, but that team, they went all in and they spent all their money, a lot of players, and they didn't even make the playoffs last year. I think that's going to hurt them this season. And then we got the Cardinals, who had, as it turns out, the offense. We don't know. We've seen some great plays out of him, and he's had some sporadic games where he hasn't played that great. Good. The Cardinals, I believe, are one of those teams that's going to slowly keep rising because they've been down at the bottom for a little bit here, but they've got a quarterback who is yet to be determined, but he's got that skill set that if he continues to rise, continue in a progression upward, you know, he's going to elevate his play above potentially some of the other quarterbacks in this division. So now we've got back to Seattle. What is Seattle's really biggest weaknesses, and what are the things they need to address the most? Well, clearly, we have one of the best quarterbacks. Very underrated still, in my opinion, because, you know, if you just look at all the honors and all those things, not enough praise, not enough attention was really shown to how good, you know, valuable Russell Wilson. And every year, despite what changes around, regardless of the defense that we have, regardless of the weapons that we have, Russell Wilson has been consistent to help keep the team close. Now, he's not going to win every single game, but he's won more than he's lost in terms of come from behind victories. And yeah, he didn't get it done against the Packers, although I was confident that one more snap in his hands, he would have done it. And an unfortunate drop by, you know what I'm talking about, Malik Turner. I believe that drive would have kept going and we would have won that game. Anyway, so there's no doubt Russell Wilson's been doing it for too long, too consistently, to not be regarded as a quarterback who can get it done. So what are the weaknesses? Well, I think running game wise, the running game was great up until everybody got decimated. But if those guys can come back, with the exception of CJ Procise, I think he's probably his last time as a Seahawk. If Sean Penny and Chris Carson can get back in, we should be all right there in running back. The biggest needs and the biggest thing hurt us, and the thing that will continue to hurt us unless we address it, is pass rush. The great teams, the teams that made it deep into the playoffs, were the teams that had pass rushers. Seattle had moments of pass rushers, but we had enough to where it consistently was going on. Nobody was consistent. Jadeveon Clowney was the closest thing, and he himself was inconsistent, injury prone. But he was the best thing that we had. Jaron Reed, disappointing. Ziggy Ansah, disappointing. LJ Collier just disappeared. I'm hoping there's something there that we just haven't seen yet. They're just going to have to need more time to develop. It contributed hardly at all this season. So we swung and missed on pass rush, and I believe that for the Seahawks to get anywhere, we've got to have pass rush. That was what helped us make it to the Super Bowl in 48 and 49, because we had deep defensive lines in Super 48. Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill. We had even more in 48. 49, that tandem worked out pretty good. So we got to find, you know, and that's why quarterbacks, I talk about in that order, because, you know, the most expensive players on your team, the quarterback number one, number two, pass rusher, because that's how valuable they are. Because you got the quarterback, most important player in your team, and what's the pass rushers? The guy to go get the most expensive player on the other team. So we've got to find a solution for our pass rush. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think they'll find a way to get Clowney, but we're still going to have to figure out how do we get more players, and hopefully LJ Collier can develop into that. But again, we don't have a ton of money because it's going to cost us a bunch just to keep him, and then our free agents that we need. So it's not like we can go out and just draft, or just pick up off the free agency the most expensive pass rusher on the market. It's probably not going to happen. So, you know, again, the challenge there is how do we get it? How do we get the pass rush? And it's tough because every time you're in the playoff every year, you get that where you're 2-14, and then you get to be, potentially offensive line, defensive line, tight end depth. But we're actually pretty solid in most of the other positions. The secondary, again, there was a lot of concern about that, but a good pass rush can resolve a bad secondary. It can mask a bad secondary, or not bad secondary, but even an okay secondary, because the secondary can only cover guys for so long. Eventually, if they have all day, the best secondary will be picked apart. But just to wrap this up, that's it. We need pass rush. We've got to develop our pass rush. But outside of that, I think if everything else, we can just sort of take some positive steps, we'll be all right. And we'll see. Got free agency coming up. Then, of course, the draft. And I think there's more, I'll put more onus on the talent scouts and evaluators and John Schneider, because we haven't had the best, at least it doesn't feel like we've had the most success drafting in the last few years. We had a lot of great success several years ago, but some of our more recent picks have not turned out so great. So we'll have to do before the draft, take a look at how our drafts have been in recent years and really see if there's some truth to that. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening to me for a little bit, and we'll talk to you guys later. Go Hawks.